Hi, everybody. Master Toby Milroy here again, publisher for Martial Arts World News Magazine. And thanks so much for watching Martial Arts Business Innovations. It really does help us out a lot if you click like and subscribe and maybe even hit the bell notification icon on your screen right now. It does help sort of goose the YouTube and the Facebook algorithm and help this video reach more school operators who we might be able to help. So please go ahead and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified anytime we post new content. We're really working hard to speak with some of the most successful school operators in the world and bring you some of the biggest innovations in running your martial arts business. So thanks so much. Hit the notification and bell icon and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to Martial Arts Industry Innovations, presented by Martial Arts World News Magazine. Here, you'll get the latest news and information about the martial arts industry and discover the latest tools, tactics, innovations, business systems, teaching strategies, and much more to help you grow your school, career, or martial arts business. You'll also hear from some of the most successful school owners, innovators, instructors, industry influencers, and thought leaders in the world, sharing proven strategies and solutions to take your martial arts school or business to new heights. Join our mission at Martial Arts World News Magazine to raise the standards of martial arts business professionalism throughout the world. Welcome to Martial Arts Industry Innovations, presented by Martial Arts World News Magazine. Here, you'll get the latest news and information about the martial arts industry and discover the latest tools, tactics, innovations, business systems, teaching strategies, and much more to help you grow your school, career, or martial arts business. You'll also hear from some of the most successful school owners, innovators, instructors, industry influencers, and thought leaders in the world, sharing proven strategies and solutions to take your martial arts school or business to new heights. Join our mission at Martial Arts World News Magazine to raise the standards of martial arts business professionalism throughout the world.
Well, I think we're live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Let me see if this is actually working. It's definitely working. I don't know how I can see the video, though. So I'm just going to wave my hand at it and say it's working. Welcome, everybody. Master Toby Milroy here again, a publisher for Martial Arts World News Magazine. And obviously joining us today is our special guest, Grandmaster Stephen Oliver. Today we're talking about his new book, Six Simple Steps for Adding 100 New Students to Your School. So,
good, you got it.
Yeah, I've been through it. It's all out. I've got it all outlined and highlighted and ready to go. And I mean, it's really a bunch of stuff to talk to, a bunch of stuff to talk about that you sort of specifically address in the book. But anybody can pick this up. I have a little link. If you look at the bottom of the video here at fillyourschool.com, you can actually pick up a free copy. So go there, get that thing. There's also a link in the description that you can click, and it'll take you over there as well. But Master Oliver, I never like to assume that everybody knows anybody because, as we both, I think, know that the martial arts industry isn't one big thing; it's a bunch of little things, and a bunch of the little things never
post-COVID.
Yeah. Well, and a bunch of the little things never talk to each other. Yeah. So there are all sorts of little sub-segments of the industry that just never commingle. And, what's super common and people who are well-known in one sector, some people don't even know in another. So by way of quick introduction, Grandmaster Stephen Oliver is the founder of the Mile High Karate franchise in Colorado and around the world, was a founding member of the EFC Board of Directors, which is really interesting kind of origin there. You published the first internet marketing book in the industry, which I think is relevant for our discussion a little later today. And when was that? Was that 90, 89, 90?
99.
99.
Back when it was Alta Vista and Go-To and
I think I had Prodigy, an internet or something like that.
Yeah.
And developed the highest selling marketing program in the martial arts industry, Extraordinary Marketing, and then founded the longest running, as far as what my amateur research has discovered, you've been running the most long lasting, most successful coaching program of its kind in the industry. Kind of period, right? This is 20 something
20 some years. So.
20 something years. Yeah. Coaching some of the highest, net, gross revenue, net profit martial arts schools in the industry.
Yeah.
And like I described, author of the new book, six simple steps to add 100 new students to your school. So welcome. Thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it. This will be a lot of fun,
Yeah. I'm celebrating, goodness, what would it be? 52 years in martial arts or 55 years? I don't know. I started in 1969, so somebody can do the math for me. Started my first school in 1974, which by today's standards is kind of laughable, but I took over the Y program from my instructor that was branched of the Junri Institute. But Mile High Karate was started 41 years ago. I had worked my way through the Georgetown University working for Junri, thinking I was going to be a world champion kickboxer. And then after hanging out with Jeff Smith and a stable of the best fighters in the world, decided that was really a stupid way to make a living for me, and moved to Denver and opened 5 schools in 18 months, 6 schools in 30 months. And in today's terms, had done, what would it be? A little over 5 million, inflation adjusted, by the time I was 25, running that multiple school operation. And then ran one of the biggest national tournaments for 10 years, part of the NASCA World Tour event. And when I decided that seemed like that's again one of those things that seemed like a good idea at the time. Then after you do it for a while, the idea of losing money every year and investing 500 hours to have your local schools dislike you immensely was not a good combination.
Well, what's fun when you're 21 is different when you're not. Right. I mean, right.
That's true. True. Yeah. Once you can say been there, done that.
Yeah. And by the way, for everybody watching, obviously you can see we have a live chat kind of up and running. I'll keep my eye on that throughout the time today. If you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share with the group or anything you'd like Grandmaster Oliver to address, we can certainly do that. So just kind of pop that in the chat area, and we'll keep our eyes closely fixed on that thing. So actually, you mentioned a couple of things I thought might be interesting to talk about a little bit today. So obviously, that your book is kind of mostly focused on growing a martial arts school from the marketing and new student acquisition side of the fence. You mentioned you were part of the Junri Institute kind of in the early days, and that had to be the most successful multi-school organization of its time for a long time.
Certainly in North America. Yeah, certainly in North America.
Sure. Yeah. Good point. What sort of lessons do you think you'd pull forward from the Junri Institute that are still relevant today that you felt were interesting? You mentioned a few kind of like takeaways in the book. What might you point people at?
Oh my goodness, so many. Junri was, he was referred to as the father of American Taekwondo. Pretty much anybody who was teaching Taekwondo in Texas or Oklahoma came from Junri, and then he moved to Washington, D.C. and begat most of the schools in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, etc. But the impact really, in fact, it goes a step further back to Pat Burleson, who was his first, Alan Stein and Pat Burleson were his first students. They met some guys from Fred Astaire Dance Studios and learned the ballroom dance business and started implementing it in martial arts schools. And then they taught it to, Pat Burleson, taught Junri and Ed Parker the systems that he had learned from them. And then a few years later, he taught it to Chuck Norris for the Chuck Norris schools, Chuck Norris and Bob Wall. But Junri went back to Washington, D.C. and found a dance school guy who had a background with Arthur Murray and then Art Linkletter. At the time, he had 7 Art Linkletter dance studios. And what they were transported after-school care for kids in the dance business. They sent a bus out to pick kids up, bring them over, did study skills stacks, taught them dancing and so forth. But what Junri's biggest gift was, and there were many, for those who don't know, any foam pad, any protective equipment that happens in sport karate now, Junri invented it because his student, Pat Worley, got injured in a tournament. And he figured that what we were doing was too dangerous, so he invented the foam pads. And then if you see musical forms and all of the acrobatics and so forth, that was all beget from Junri. He did the first form, Exodus, and then the Junri Institute of Minnesota did the next form, Beethoven, and then the guys in Mexico did Granada, which were the first 3 musical forms ever performed, to my knowledge, in martial arts. And you can just kind of go on and on. But to me, his biggest gift was the gift of self-promotion.
Yeah.
He was a promoter like no other, and he was this constant whirlwind of activity. And he recognized early on that celebrity sells, so it's good to be a celebrity, but it's good to be attached to celebrities. And so he formed a relationship with Muhammad Ali. And I had to make a choice when I was 16 of go compete in a tournament with Jeff Smith or meet Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali was going to be there for the grand opening of their Falls Church School, and I chose to go fight because I was a fighter and went to New Orleans and fought. But he built a really strong relationship with Muhammad Ali and with Bruce Lee and then with Tony Robbins. And then he saw an article in a newspaper that a congressman had been mugged. And when I was in Washington, D.C. was the murder capital of North America. I mean, it was just pitiful. Back in the days of Marion Barry, which they erected a statue to Marion during the George Floyd riots, but
it's trending that direction again, isn't it?
They get the governance they deserve. Yeah,
what's old is new again.
Exactly, but he saw a congressman got mugged, and so he found that as an opportunity. So he reached out to the congressman to teach him martial arts, and the congressman saw it as a publicity opportunity, and of course June Rhee saw it as a publicity opportunity. And then he saw an article about a congressman, and he reached out to an ambassador reached out to all the ambassadors and ended up with all the ambassadors and or their kids in martial arts. And then he used the congressman to end up being the official instructor for Congress for many years, taught everybody from Joe Biden to H.W. Bush to Newt Gingrich to the speaker of the a different speaker of the House. Name's not coming to mind right now. Jesse Jackson Jr. I could go through a list, but he was good at becoming a local celebrity, but also good at attaching himself to celebrities. So he ended up with George Allen, coach of the Redskins, as a student. I mentioned Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar. When I was living in Washington, D.C., Reagan was president, and there was serious conversations going on between the White House and June Rhee about training Reagan in martial arts, because the attack against Reagan is he was too old. So June Rhee's pitch was, this will make you look useful. Yeah. And actually Reagan's staff decided not to do it because they already thought he had too much of an image of a warmonger. So this might exacerbate that, for goodness sake. But he was a master at that. He was, and of course, Muhammad Ali was probably the world, the greatest of all time at self-promotion in sports. But June Rhee was attached to his hip, learning what Muhammad Ali was doing, among others, including Bruce Lee, and they were feeding off each other back and forth.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Like from marketing lesson standpoint, certainly, self-promotion and celebrity and public relations and all that. But also, and some schools get a little squeamish about this, and I think we need to be better at it in the industry. Is when there's a media event, when something happens in your local community, when something happens, unfortunately, sometimes these are negative, situations. We have a role to play there. And I think some get a little squeamish about how would you address that? Some get a little squeamish about leveraging, negative news.
Well, I think there's two competing interests here. PR rule number one. You can make it 2 or 3 points, but get inside the news that's already going on and figure out how you fit is one of the easiest ways to get on TV, radio, and so forth. Number two is be attached to a celebrity or be a celebrity. What I already said. Third is human interest. And so most of the publicity that I've done in Denver fit in one of those camps. Now in Denver, by the way, we had Columbine. Yeah. And when we had Columbine, I had 3 schools that were all within 2 miles of Columbine. And I saw a lot of people trying to jump on that and trying to jump on 9/11 with the hijackings. And I do believe there are things that you just don't want to look opportunistic in the midst of crisis, right? But if you have an uptick of crime, you have somebody who was assaulted. We had a young lady, 14-year-old brown belt, I believe it was. The typical, the Ford LTD pulls up, the guy gets out, grabs her by the wrist to pull her in the car. She has the presence of mind from her training to kick him once and then get rid of the release and run away. And we use that to get on Montel Williams, to get in Black Belt Magazine, Taekwondo Times, all the local radio stations, all the local TV stations did a little piece on her. The two major papers at the time, Rocky Mountain News, Denver Post, did big feature articles on her. I think I said Montel Williams. We were going to be on the Montel Williams show before it got canceled. So it was, to me, it's that balance of I didn't jump on Columbine. That was a bridge too far. But anything that you can tie into women's self-defense when there's an outbreak of assaults on campus, Denver has an uptick of all kinds of stuff. It's Denver's trying to become LA, so there would be all kinds of things that we could tag on to with people feeling increasingly less safe.
Yeah, there are definitely some categories that some describe it as like getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, right? I mean, there are definitely some categories that are kind of taboo enough. Clever approaches, though, usually insulate you from a bunch of this stuff, and it especially when television was really it. That was like the big home run. If you could get on television, a lot of opportunity there. It's like super useful.
And I might say it a little different way too. Is if you already have a reputation for aggressive charitable outreach in your community, then when an opportunity comes up like this, it's a natural tie. They don't view it as opportunistic. They view it as a natural inclination of what you're doing already. And again, I see a lot of schools where, they have some kind of crisis, typically a staff member behaves inappropriately with a student or something like that. If you already have a reputation of you're working with all the churches, the scout leaders, the local charity events, you're out there all the time, you're more likely to get given the benefit of the doubt. And if you're on the other side of it where you're perceived as just purely opportunistic, you're more likely to get bad publicity and get stuck with bad publicity.
Yeah, and without a way to fight back. There's a whole sort of strategy behind that I know you teach all your coaching clients and all your franchise owners. Used to be a little bit more relevant in sort of, I guess, the traditional media, if you want to call that, the mainstream media, is sort of garnering this Rolodex status, right? Where you become the sort of local resource for this. And what ends up happening is when stories do hit the news, they call you and ask you how should we handle this, and how should we cover this? Does that seem right?
Yeah, I mean, and on the other side of it, I've become a big podcast fan, like most people, mostly streamed off of YouTube, and I noticed that all the top people that I like, if you pay any close attention, they have a range of about 20 people they rotate through, right? And so some breaking news, I don't care whether it's Joe Rogan or Megyn Kelly or whoever it is, they have a relatively small number. The same thing, the same Rolodex deal is, Bill Maher has a selection of people that they rotate through. That type of stuff still happens locally as well. Yeah. But certainly, Denver still has one major daily paper. It's kind of a shadow of its former self, but they have a big online presence as well as a daily and a weekend distribution. So if I have an article in that, it's still 250 people saw it. Yeah. Or 250,000, I mean. But the ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox affiliates still have pretty good traffic. But I mean, Junior was such a master. One of the things he did is he had the Republicans versus the Democrats team fights. So he put the Republicans in red and the Democrats in blue, and paired them up in one thing or another. And he got that on CNN worldwide. Every 30 minutes, there was a spot on this for 24 hours in Russia, in France, all over North America, everywhere. He ended up on the cover of Parade magazine with Bruce Jenner and I forget who else. There were three of them, but it was I know, Cheryl Teagues, Bruce Jenner, and Bruce Lee. Now Caitlyn, I guess. But he was good at garnering international publicity that impacted locally, as well as local publicity. We had a full-time PR guy that would come into all the meetings, and he would end up every week. There was a story in the Washington Post or in the Washington Times, and of course, then there were like 22 different local papers, around our schools. There still are most areas. I still see a lot of either the alternative papers. A lot of them here now are just all pot ads, but you can get an article in there and so forth. So all of those are valuable publicity, as well as the online influencers.
Yeah, and in almost all those cases, that we're talking about $0, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about the camera crew shows up in front of the school or whatever the case is, and
Yeah.
you make sure you have your logo on your shirt and the sign in the background, and all this stuff. It's like it's a reach a lot larger than zero for $0. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Why would
yeah.
you want to be that guy?
Well, we had the local weathercaster, so we did a little lesson with him every day on the new news and promote him to white belt at the end of the week. We had another time where, with events, I always found on weekends, I could put out press releases and contact them. And what I knew is if a big building downtown was on fire, during our event, they were going to cover that.
Yeah.
But if it was a slow news day, they still needed film. They needed something. So, we would have every tournament one thing or another, and randomly they would show up and come cover it based upon what else do they have going on.
Yeah. You have to be ready to understand that what bleeds leads, right? So you may not be for you today, but if you take enough swings at the bat, and in fact, I've seen in your book you mention it, and certainly I've seen a lot of your coaching clients who kind of follow this pattern, and you've got, I think I've seen Amanda, help me with the last name,
Christensen or
Dr.
Olson.
Mom.
Oh yeah, Olson.
Yeah, Amanda Olson. She's on like a local affiliate, like once a week or once every couple of weeks, and like it's a large number of folks who kind of figured this system out. Like you sort of walk them through how to make this work really well. Yeah,
we were having the marketing boot camp, and she went back and got a 5-minute segment, and it's actually a paid gig. It's in fact, if you see Matt Walsh's new "Am I a Racist?" he has a whole bunch of those things that they did in the movie, and in most areas they have like the show where people can actually do a sponsored gig on them, and they do a 5-minute or 10-minute segment. But even with that, once you're like walking in and out of the studio and getting to know everybody, it's so much easier to get on the news. Yeah. All of a sudden you're one of them. They've seen you on film. It's one of those things that you just become part of the media. In my case, I was both locally part of the media, but part of the school system. Every school I walked in and out of, they assumed I was from the administration. Because everybody knew me.
There are two kinds of people in the world, the learned and the learner. The learned are done learning and cannot see any more to gain. The learner continues to learn and grows exponentially. Martial Arts Business Institute is a place where learners come to grow.
If you're a martial arts school owner who'd love to double or triple your revenue, add 100 or more new students to your school, don't miss your chance. This is the biggest opportunity. Join us now.
Hello, I'm Jan Lappin from Middleburg Martial Arts, and we have been with the group for many years. It's been wonderful. It's helped us so much. I think when we originally started, we were in the 40s. We're in the 70s now. We're looking at doing $1 million this year. And the best part of it all for me is we're doing this while we're helping people.
Hi there, Stephen Oliver here. I hope you found valuable a success story you've been watching of one of our top members. I'd like to share with you a bunch of more information about how you can grow your school. We have a special free report, 7 things that school owners do to shoot themselves in the foot. I welcome you to click the link here below or call my office now. You can call Bob Dunn at 720-256-0208.
Check out the latest issue of Martial Arts World News Magazine, the industry trade journal for martial arts school owners and instructors at mawnews.com. And now, back to our show.
Yeah, let's get to that. Let's get to that in a few moments here too.
Sure.
So I think obviously, Junri sort of establishing a lot of these sort of principles in the 70s, right? And they're still as relevant today as they ever were, probably more so if you consider the cacophony of craziness going on out there. Yeah. At the same time, I think there's a bit of a headwind that you identify in the book from sort of a Steve Jobs story about the bozo explosion. So walk us through kind of what do you think is the negative sort of trend you're seeing in that arena?
Well, you and I have talked about this before. Sometimes if the only, it's the old metaphor, the only tool you have is a hammer, everything seems like a nail. And people are so fixated nowadays with internet marketing, they forget everything else that exists, right? Yeah. And, one of the things that Jeff Smith, my associate, former world champion, one of the things he says is that all the schools should be evenly balanced between external community outreach internal referral marketing and online marketing. And when he first started saying that, I didn't like it too much because I tend to overcomplicate everything. I want 20 things going on every month and all these different things. But it does make sense. You really want to have that palette of different things going on every month. And there's a synergy among them all, right? So if they see me in the newspaper and then they see a bandit sign and then they see a rack card and then I'm in their elementary school and then I'm in their newspaper and then they see me on the news, all of that stuff aggregates.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm the one and only one choice. That used to be we would always ask them on the inbound call or the outbound call how they found out about us. And nowadays, of course, you have all kinds of online tracking for that too. But it doesn't, the fact that they click this link in Facebook or click this link in Google doesn't tell you about the 20 other things that hopefully they saw, right? And so I would ask people, how did you find out about us? And the number one answer was, oh my goodness, where didn't I find out about you? I see you everywhere. And that's the answer we wanted.
Yeah. So tracking that stuff almost always only tracks the last point of contact.
Correct.
It's the thing that they saw the most recently, right? You describe in the book sort of this Parthenon concept where you've got these multiple pillars, of marketing activity happening. And I mean, certainly leaning too far into, I'm as digital as you get. Like I love this stuff, but leaning too far, I gave up on Google ads, 15 years ago, well, to a large degree, when the cost per customer acquisition got to be untenable, right?
Right.
And all media tend to follow that curve, right? It starts off incredibly inexpensive, and then the curve sort of logarithmically, increases over time until it gets to a point where it's not viable anymore. But on the Bozo explosion, where do you see that on the how to grow the school side? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Come back to that. Toby, you've been doing this for how many years now? I mean, we've worked together for 20 some years.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, 20 something.
I hate to count.
You started your schools over in Daytona area 25, 27 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe longer.
98, 99, something like that.
Yeah. I opened my schools in 1983. And what we see in every cycle, right, with and it's not just business, it's curriculum. I saw the cycle where everybody was saying they taught Kung Fu because there was a Kung Fu TV show. And then everybody was saying they taught Taekwondo because it was in the Olympics. And then it was Eskrima. And then it was you had to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, and then it's MMA. And it never made any difference whatsoever, in my opinion. It was, can I get to my target audience, show them what the benefit is, and get them to raise their hand and get them in the door. But on the marketing side, there's this cacophony of voices, and there always has been. I mean, it's not unusual, but what we have now is social media is so prevalent. Social media advertising is relatively easy. YouTube is prevalent, et cetera. So now everybody's coming out of the closet, and mostly you have a bunch of like 20-somethings who've never run a martial arts school. Or never run a martial arts school successfully, who figured out how to place Facebook ads or figured out how to place Google ads, and they have these massive promises of, you don't have to do any work and we'll feed them. And I'm sure you have the same issue. I have a lot of them contact me behind the scenes, and every one of them has the same problems. Let's assume they're good at running Facebook ads. They generate leads. The client says they're generating flaky leads. So the person generating the leads is frustrated because the clients don't appreciate them. The client doesn't appreciate them because the follow-up sucks, right?
Yeah.
Some of them now are going to the point of, we'll have a paid intro and you'll pay us per lead we generate, and then we'll hand it off once the appointment, not per appointment. We'll hand them off once the appointment is made.
Right.
They have the same problem because now the appointments they made don't show up. Because you don't get rich sitting on your ass, right? And everybody makes big promises, but what I've seen a lot of times is our clients end up getting sucked in by a marketing ad that really is somebody running an agency. The agency does a really good job for maybe 90 days.
Yeah.
And usually they're a one-trick pony, maybe two. And so when that particular ad campaign dissipates or doesn't work in their area, they're out of skills. And as you said, that cost per lead starts to go way up. I have one of our clients, they're using him as the poster boy. This agency, I think they're up in Canada. They're using him as the poster boy, and he's going, "Oh my God, I spent $1,000 in ads, last month, and I got 3 leads." It's like, well, we can't spend $400 or $300 per lead.
Yeah.
We can spend $400 per enrollment.
Sure. Yeah.
But we can't spend $300 per lead because they're not that solid. So, yeah, it keeps cycling. But by the way, the other thing is I've seen all of a sudden, people picked up on some of the things I guess we were saying about $1 million, a year schools. And now they're all saying, well, they're $1 million a year schools. But I had a refugee from one of those people contact me just a couple of days ago. Here's their numbers. And they're in Canada. 850 active students, grossing $80,000 a month Canadian. So that's about 60 US. And they think that they've got it all nailed. I ran the numbers. They were doing $98 a month on average per student. So I guess gross is a little bit higher than that. But $98 average revenue per student. Well, these guys have high expenses, massive volume, almost no net profit, and they think that they're doing great. Our guys who do $100,000 a month are netting 50 or 60.
Yeah.
They're not netting 5%. That's just you're a hamster on a treadmill.
Yeah, that's the way I choose to look at it. Also, is like I have a client, and it's been a thing, and they're in like a premium demographic. Imagine like La Jolla or San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
A premium demographic, and they're doing 1.2 and feel wonderful about that. And I love them. They're my family. You know what I mean? Like I love these human beings.
Yeah, sure.
But I look at the school and I say, okay, well, you should be doing 3.5. Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing 1.2, but you should be more than double. Let's start tweaking some dials here. I think it's crazy. I think
I've got 3 that match that description, all independent of each other in Seattle.
Yeah.
And a couple more in Texas. And I just had that conversation. It's like they're going, we just had our record month. We did 109, or the other one did 116. I'm going, well, you've got all these things that are screwed up. We really should be at by this time next year 200, and by the following year 300 a month. So massively under maximizing the potential, but it takes a lot for that to sink in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had 2 silver spoon opportunities. One was I was watching what June Reed, Jeff Smith, and Nick Okinis were doing in Washington D.C. in the 70s. And got full access to the files, got full access to the behind the scenes. June Reed would let me go through the file cabinets. Nick and Jeff helped me with the business plan, as did June Reed. Nobody else had that opportunity, frankly, because they didn't ask. There was a number of people from that organization who went out on their own, and they never thought to, let's see if they'll help me, rather than I'll just kind of leave in a huff. But I had the support of everybody. And then the second thing is I had such success early on that it's easy for me to see, well, hell, we were doing those numbers in the 80s when nobody else knew what they were doing, including me. I mean, so much stuff that if I, same thing, if I knew then what I know now, God help us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's often easy to kind of like fail to factor in opportunity cost and fail to factor in like where I should be. It's hard to see past it sometimes, and I don't know. It's kind of a tricky scenario. Payasanda, no, sorry, I'm butchering that. Said you can see a picture. You can see a picture on the internet, but it doesn't mean you know what's going on in the person's life. Makes a ton of sense, right? Like ad fatigue. Different. The same headline might impact somebody completely differently today than it does 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now, whatever. So I think well said on that one. On the agency.
Well, there was a great copywriter. John E. Kennedy, no relations to JFK. I forget, 40s probably. Yeah. But his line was, you want to get inside the conversation already going on in their mind. And the problem, again, with the agencies, and we use several of them, right, that do a great job, but oftentimes they don't understand our business and our customer very well. And so they end up with a mismatch on what the parent is looking for. And if you don't know, the martial arts student in depth, let's take the kids market or the adult market, doesn't matter. But what I know is the parent wants discipline, focus, and confident, but they want the kid to not resist them and have a lot of fun and find something that they're going to arrive to. The adult male market, they want to be James Bond.
Yeah.
So they have their picture in their mind of, Daniel Craig. They won't say it out loud, but that's really what they want, right? So if you don't know what's going on emotionally for them, you're not going to get something that clicks and then leads them through the process well.
Yeah. We, one of the things that we do here with a bunch of our clients is we run an agency model for a lot of them. And first of all, we tell everybody, literally straight up front, we don't know. We don't know how this ad set's going to perform in your given area. We've seen results where literally 1 mile down the road, we'll have an ad set that's just running gangbusters, and another one that and 1 mile down the road, it's crickets. Once the Facebook algorithm gets a hold of whatever you're doing, it's out of your control now. So our sort of proposition is just in frequency of observation. So our guys are monitoring these 3 times a day. 3 times a day we do analytics per campaign and make sure that we're kind of like trying to influence the algorithm in the right direction. But the point is that even the most highly qualified lead delivered to the front door, there's still an awful lot of work that has to get done behind the scenes to turn that into money, to turn it into a new student, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where you're getting is like, it's far more important than just, getting someone's hand to pop up, right? There's a lot more going on there.
Well, step back. I get this from clients all the time. They say, well, I'm paying a lot of money to get this managed for me. Shouldn't I just do it myself? And my answer is always what you just said is, in order to get this media to work effectively, you have this constant A to B split test process.
Yep.
You have to be monitoring the cost per lead. Well, you've got to know when the cost per lead is escalating, when it's gotten to a point where you have to change out the ad. You've got to be monitoring headlines. You've got to be monitoring how many people saw it, how many clicked, how many completed the opt-in form, how many of them did you convert to appointment, how many of them did you convert to enrollment. You've got to be monitoring all that stuff. And if I'm in my martial arts school, I can have you monitor all that at a 10 times more efficiency, effectiveness, and capability than I could do sitting out of my school. Plus, I shouldn't be sitting in my school. I should be out meeting with the principal, the PE teacher. I should be talking to a renewal. I should be out, lining up community outreach events. I should be doing PR. I should be doing something that I can't outsource. It's as dumb as, not being willing to hire an accountant. Last thing I'd want to do is sit down and spend 2 days reconciling the books every month. It'd be a complete waste of my time, and other people will do it better.
Yeah, well, I think that was if I remember history correctly, and I'm pretty sure I have this one pegged. That was one of the conversations that you and I had on in the early days for me, where it was the toughest check I had to stroke. One of the toughest checks I stroke was when I hired the commercial cleaning company.
Oh yeah,
because but the deal we made was, I give them the check, but while they're there doing that, I go meet elementary school principals, or I go meet, guidance counselors, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that's a huge turning point for me personally. Let's go there. In fact, so while we're talking about, the book again, six simple steps to add 100 students to your school. There's a link in the description over there.
Yeah, they can get it for free immediately.
Yep. In fact, it's right there. Fillyourschool.com. You can get a copy of it. Yeah. You spend one chapter roughly on internet and all things, maybe 2, search, and then one for social.
Yeah, there's one on social media, one on internet marketing.
Yep. So 2 for online, channels, so to speak, but then 7 on community outreach and things that are happening internally and externally. So maybe there's certainly some significance there. Maybe walk us through the logic there, and then some of the success stories that you see, coming from those channels.
Well, to refer specifically to the book, I'm not sure the text is the most valuable piece of the book. The most valuable piece, I believe, is all the examples of real world, activity and what the results were. And, in almost all of them, there's, it was taken from our Facebook group and from, communications that I had directly with clients, but almost always it's exactly what the results they were getting were, right? And including, a lot of historic examples of stuff that I did over the years. And what I find is let me go back to history. When I opened the schools, I did all the grand openings. So I did like I said, 5 schools in 18 months, 6 schools in 30 months, was at about 3,500 active students after about 30 months. And I did all of that marketing myself, starting with zero ad budget. Now, as money came in, it went immediately back out in the newspaper, one thing or another. But most of it was just brute force, grassroots, getting out in the community and generating traffic. But the other thing I did over the years, most of my job was marketing strategy for the chain and then hiring and training staff and reviewing numbers. But every now and then, as you know, I would put myself in one of the locations, and it was always this. I take the 6 location, whichever one was worst, I would put myself in there for 90 days or so, get it to be the number 1 school, pull everybody else out, and put a new branch manager in there after I'd fired the guy who I just replaced, right? So in doing that, I couldn't jump in there and ramp up the Facebook. Now, I couldn't ramp up the Facebook ads and ramp up the pay-per-click and expect that I can fill a school up quickly.
Right,
I couldn't do a grand opening and do that. You can only scale those things so far. And as you said, the more money you throw at it, the higher the cost per lead goes. So it's almost a self-defeating cycle where you throw more money at it, the lead cost starts to escalate. Certainly with Google, you want all the clicks you can get, but there's only a certain amount of click inventory.
Can I stick a pin in that one for a second?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We see exactly the same thing that you're describing, where especially on social, the target audience that's available to target is so small relative to large national buyers, right?
You bet.
That you do exactly what you're describing. You end up kind of bidding against yourself. It's such a small niche. There's such a small number of people that fit your demographic and psychographic targeting on Facebook that now it's, there just isn't enough volume there to fill a school up.
You bet.
If that makes any sense to you.
No, it makes absolute sense. And again, you end up, and it's why you need somebody who's paying attention as their full-time position, doing especially the social media part of it. But I would say Google as well, because you've got to be knowing when you're just throwing good money after bad money, and what the process is. I will say, not to get off on a tangent, but what most people that I interact with, even running pretty big schools, they don't know how to track their numbers.
Right.
I just went through a big exercise. In fact, if we had more time, I'd pull it up. We went through, okay, so your cost per lead was, you use a fictitious number. Let's say it's costing $50 to get a lead. So therefore, we're making 50% appointments. So it's $100 per appointment. We're getting half of them in for an intro. That's $200 per intro. Enrolling half, that's $400 per enrollment. But we're getting $600-$700 when they enroll for $350 a month, let's say, and then doing a renewal. So I'm happy to spend 100% of what we get up front on the enrollment. I'm tickled to death with that, right? And all of those numbers I used were to make the math easy for me. They were sloppy ratios, right? Normally it would be 50 or 60% to appointment, 80 or 90% to show, 80, 90% to enroll. But you have to go through those numbers. How many visitors did you get? How many opt-ins did you get? What was your cost per opt-in? What was your cost per appointment? And that's where a big gap is. Oftentimes they have a high opt-in rate, but they hardly do appointments because the owner isn't chasing them quickly enough. And or they have somebody else making the appointment, then they have a high no-show rate because the owner isn't reaching out, or the staff isn't reaching out to those people. But anyway, the question was, why is so much time spent on the non-online stuff? And if I was going to ramp up a school, I knew I could do it in one of 3 or 4 ways pretty quickly. I could go out and find a bunch of live events and do booth events, but I would not just pass out flyers, not put a teenager sitting behind the booth. I would have somebody out there hustling. In today's format, we'd have a spin wheel. We'd be collecting leads, then making an appointment on the spot so we don't have to chase them down after the fact. We'd be putting them in automated systems to follow up with them. We'd be putting them physical mail to follow up with them. But, I had one of my clients, again, in Houston, they made 295 appointments last week.
Yeah.
And their show rate will probably be about half. And so far, that's been what it is.
Sure.
So 295 appointments is 145 intros, and the enrollment rate will probably be about half. So that's 70 enrollments from 1 week of massive activity. in this case by their staff, not by the owners, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I knew that I could find something like that and do it right. Most people screw it up, but I could do it right, follow the scripts and formats. And an advantage I had, Toby, I did all this marketing with the first Karate Kid movie based upon what I'd heard June Reed did with Enter the Dragon. This is how far back it goes. But first time I did any of these booths at the movie theaters, I had 13 booths going on, right? So we had to have the scripts down, the process down, and the ability to staff it out. I don't know if I ever personally worked one of the booths other than long enough to teach the staff member how to do it. But that's one way I could ramp it up, right? I could go find some big local events. The other way I could ramp it up is I could go directly into the elementary schools, and I could say public, private, Montessori, church schools, etc., but elementary and middle schools. And I could do one of several things. We would do what I call children's hospital flyers, so we could get charitable flyers out to all the kids. That was super cheap and super easy, fairly low return, but good return. Or I could go in and do a PE teacher for the day. That got bastardized into the idea of school talks.
Yeah.
But the difference with school talks was go do Mrs. Jones' second grade class. My PE teacher of the day was I hit the entire school.
Yeah.
The second difference was I got permission slips ahead of time. So instead of going in and said, hey, here's a pass and come down on Saturday, which gets almost no response, I would have name, address, phone number, and now email address for if there was 500 kids in the school, for 400 of them. And then we could follow up with that immediately.
Yeah.
Or the third thing is I could do after school enrichment programs where we would do, flyers out to register, a PE teach for the day to promote. And then I would do probably 6 lessons twice a week for 3 weeks. And with that, 500 kids in the school, I would have 100 in the after school. Well, I'd have 400 permission slips, 100 in the after school program, and 30 of them enrolled, all within a 3-week period of time. So, one of the turnarounds I did was down in Littleton, Colorado. I had 76 enrollments in 1 month. I had 36 in 1 day. I had, and this was basically by myself. I went from 4 staff members, fired 2, and the other 2 quit. So, I had volunteers. You remember Ron French and Nick French. They were my volunteers. Yeah. So 486 enrollments purely from elementary school outreach programs. And by the way, that school had been open, 20 years at that point. And all of the staff that was in there at the time told me, Cherry Creek schools won't let you do it. Douglas County schools won't let you do it. Littleton County schools won't let you do it. And I ended up enrolling 486 people from community outreach directly into elementary schools because they would let you do it. My guys were just, sloppy and lazy, which is why I had to fire them.
As I started working with Harry and Friends, boy, my complete 180, much better than I could deliver just by myself. Much better content.
Well, Harry is a godsend. Harry is like a virtual staff member.
The kids are just more excited. When it's time to do the mat chat, a lot of times it used to be verbal, but now we have the visual.
Right.
And they can relate to this guy.
We have been a long-time Harry and Friends customer with our little ninjas going on, we think, around 10 years now.
How many schools do you guys have that are using Harry and Friends? 5 schools. Excellent. And how do the kids react? How do the parents react? They love it.
Harry is a big part of our We Warriors program. Kids love him. They will do things that he says that won't do if we tell them to, and they definitely won't do it if their parents tell them to. Makes the parents a little jealous, but they love him too. Check it out, guys. You got to do Harry and Friends.
Okay, everybody. Where is Harry today? Miss Grace at Martial Arts.
Do you feel like you're getting crushed under the tremendous weight of managing your martial arts school? Crawl out from beneath the burden and reach your potential. Lighten the load and let Atlas Martial Arts Software do the heavy lifting. Visit tryatlassoftware.com to see for yourself and get 7 free gifts valued at over $400.
Stay informed while on the go with daily news in the Martial Arts World News Magazine mobile app for Apple and Android devices. Find us in your app store. And now, back to our show.
Oh, confirmation bias. They thought you couldn't get in, so therefore you couldn't get in, right?
Right, that's right.
You use this image, drinking from
a fire hose.
And I think an awful lot of folks, take the anecdote anyway. Stupid camera. They take the anecdote, but it's the
get it to focus again.
Yeah, I said all the they take the anecdote, but it's the truth. What happens is when you start leveraging these kinds of mass, I don't want to call them mass enrollments because I still like doing enrollments 101, but these mass marketing activities that are community based, there just is not enough online inventory to go get those kind of numbers anywhere.
No.
Halloween, October.
Yeah.
So the location, 1,000 roughly leads per location, right?
Yep.
Mostly from Halloween haunted houses, pumpkin patches, stores with candy, different types of Halloween activities. Especially the haunted house thing is a big deal because there's like 300 people in line for 4 hours. You know what I mean? So
back in the 80s, I was printing their tickets for them, setting up a booth outside of all of them. Everything you could do.
We've just been doing it for so many years, over and over and over again. It's almost perfunctory now. Like they just assume we're going to be there. We have the booth in front. We're right in front of the door. Everybody has to walk past us. Everybody fills the slips out. It's unbelievable, right? So if you don't believe it, you won't believe it. But as soon as you see it, it goes, oh my God. Of course there is. There's 1,000 students at that elementary school. If I could impact them in such a way that 200 of them take action on something, I mean, come on, what more do you need, right? It's just crazy.
Well, and I always had it where, we were, as I mentioned before, just adjunct staff in the schools I was working with. So I could walk in anytime I wanted, walk into a teacher's lounge. If there's something I want to distribute, I just put them in the teacher's boxes. They distribute them in the Friday folders or Wednesday folders, whatever they did in the school. If they had assembly, they would invite me down. Hell, I had principals calling me and saying, the PE teacher's out at an event the next couple of days. You want to come in and be substitute?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got time to do it. I'll do it. And you get so anchored in, and it's a much more substantial position to be in than people are seeing you on Facebook. Not that that's not valuable. And I will say the Google side of it is almost everything else we do out in the community. The data is 70 or 80% of soccer moms are going to go Google you before they come in or before they enroll. So you've got to have a great looking website. You've got to be found in search. You've got to have all that kind of stuff. But then what happens is all of a sudden your website numbers go up and you go, oh, great.
Right. What happened?
It's because you were stirring the pot, so many other places.
Yeah, 100%. You can't rely on on organic search traffic just from people thinking about you natively. There's just not enough of it out there. You can go look at the click inventory on Google, keyword planner, and it'll tell you how many people are searching for it, and it doesn't even show up on the list. It's such a small number. But if you just went and saw 1,000 students at an elementary school, a couple hundred of them are going to Google you. I mean, something's going to happen.
You go back to the way media's changed over the years. When I was on TV a lot, we used to do 30-second spots on Oprah and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the 5 o'clock news and 7 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news. I knew I had to have a big ad in the yellow pages because most of them on broadcast media didn't catch the phone number and they're going to go look you up in the yellow pages. Yeah. Google is just the yellow pages now when it comes to stuff like that. So most years I hated the yellow pages because I was paying to generate traffic to go pay for them to find me in the source that they were going to look me up. And it was, but it was, essential.
Yeah. So on the community front, by the way, let's underscore one more point. You mentioned it in the book, and I think it's pretty critical that people get this because I think it's another reason why it's, 6 units on community and internal and things and just a couple on online. Talk to me about how you describe like the quality of the lead, the quality of the students that are coming from those activities relative to others. How would you define that for people?
Well, of course it's all over the board. I mean, the way I describe it for our clients is if I had a student who came in as a guest at a belt testing or maybe a birthday party, and I put them on the email list, the text message list, the direct mail list, and I've hit them 32 times, and then 4 months later they call me. Well, I mean, I could have a robot close that sale, right? That's a 95% likelihood they're going to show up, and 95% likelihood they're going to enroll. And on the other side of the spectrum, somebody clicks a Facebook ad. The biggest problem is chasing them down and getting them on the phone and turning them into an appointment. And so it didn't take, especially if it's like a lead ad type of thing, it didn't take much effort for them to click the form. Doesn't mean they're ready to enroll today. Right. Maybe they're researching for January this time of year. Maybe they're going to be ready in May. Maybe they're looking for something next year. So that takes an awful lot more effort. When it comes to community outreach, I think of it this way: the closer you are to a carnival barker with the cane pulling them in, the more you're getting to them on your schedule, not on their schedule. So now you need Atlas software, and you need all the other follow-up systems where you're direct mailing to them, you're emailing to them, you're texting to them forever, right?
Yeah.
Until they decide they're going to come around. So I think that the mistake that most owners miss is they think, well, I'll call them 2 or 3 times, or they no show, they're not really interested. That's not it at all. Is if I ended up with, you said 1,000, if I ended up with 1,000 leads, well, I'd be jumping for joy if I got 100 enrolled right now. But I got 900 that I can follow up and get, some of them in January, some of them in February, some of them in March, some of them never. But I can get to them when they're ready, as long as I stay in front of them. And I guarantee when they're ready to start a new activity, they're not going to remember my name.
Yeah.
They're not going to come looking for us. And in most cases, they're not going to go look for martial arts, right?
Yeah.
They're going to end up in some other activity. But if I'm in their email box every day or 3 times a week, if I'm in their mailbox 2 or 3 times a month, if I'm texting them a couple, 3 times a month at least, and staying in front of them and inviting them to, student activity events, buddy days, all of that kind of stuff, inviting them to come see the exam, I stay front of mind. And when they're ready, they'll reach out to us.
Yeah. Talk about bozo explosion. I've over just the last couple of months stumbled across a couple of new consultants in the industry who their advice is, well, call them once or twice, then you don't want to bother them anymore. I know.
Yeah.
I just want to shoot myself in the head half the time.
I make the mistake of watching these guys, and I was watching. I was watching a video. I won't say who it was, but seemed like a nice enough guy. But this was the dumbest shit I'd ever heard. Pardon my language. They were walking through this big production they have for birthday parties. Great so far, right? They're promoting big birthday parties, and they have several a weekend and so forth. And then he says the dumbest thing I've ever heard: with every gift bag, we put a guest pass in.
Yeah.
And if they're interested, they'll call us. But we don't want to bug them. Well, wait a minute. I have 2 kids. They're kind of beyond that stage now. But we went to the gymnastics school, to the music school, to the bounce house place, everything else. What happened to the gift bag is they ended up in the back of the SUV. And then once a month when I went and detailed the SUV, it got thrown out. They never looked at it again. I never looked at it again. And if they didn't schedule an appointment right then and there, or continue to follow up with us forever, I was never going to remember who it was, right?
100%.
Even if we went to the gymnastics school and my daughter was really excited about it, we were going to end up somewhere else for no other reason than I don't know who that was. I'm not going to remember. It's just, if you don't have their contact information, and preferably make an appointment on the spot, but if you don't have their contact information to proactively reach out by telephone, by text, by email, and by direct mail, and Toby, in your wheelhouse, retargeting ads, because people forget that you can go from offline to online, and they should. So if I generated 100 or 1,000 leads from Halloween, they should be seeing me all over Google and Facebook now. I should be retargeting to them. It's a relatively easy process to upload all their information, then have Facebook, show ads to them from then on.
Yeah. I bought a car from that process. I was not in the market for a car. The guy who sold me the last 3 of them, pinged me and said, hey, listen, we got this new thing. You might want to look at this.
Yeah.
$70,000 later, it's like this shit works, right? I mean, this is a deal.
Oh, yeah.
I would understand.
Joe Girard used to talk about that, the itch cycle.
Yeah.
Everybody should have read all of Joe Girard's books.
Yeah.
The world, Guinness Book of World Records for car sales.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were on to
well,
something.
all I was going to underscore is just on the community outreach element. These are not people who are out there shopping. These are people who now they're not thinking about the guy down the street. They're not trying to negotiate prices. They're not trying to, they are now interested in not martial arts. They're interested in you and your program, the thing you've exposed them to. So when it comes to closing ratio, conversion ratio, negotiating ratio, all this stuff, they're so much better. Oh yeah. There's no price sensitivity. It's either
That's my staff always hated quote unquote yellow book page leads, and then Google leads. because it's the one place where somebody's looking at all of your competitors.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them, well, in fact, it doesn't really matter because we're the only ones going to answer the phone. So first person who answers the phone has them, right? And same thing is true of opt-ins, right? First person who gets them, has them. But it is a place where they're shopping for price because they don't know what else to compare.
Yeah, it's the only question they know how to ask. It's the only thing they've been conditioned to shop for. Expedia and all these other services. It's the only thing that they can, they commoditize everything else. And again, bozo explosion. We have some folks in our industry who think that we should just go to be a commoditized service like a health club or a gym. No. It's insanity, right? Yeah. Maybe the last element here, as we run out of time, I know you have a hard stop here, but you mentioned it earlier, and I have it underscored on my list as well. The amount of social proof that you've included in the book, people telling their story about the system that they executed and the types of results they got with like proof, like DNA evidence, the lead list, the prospect list. I think you even published people's like social budgets and things like that, like their
how much they spent, how many leads.
Yeah. And so I think there's two things there that I would mention. Number one is just the power of social proof in marketing just in general, but also talk to me a little bit about the coaching program. Again, this is the longest running, most successful, continuously operated coaching program in our industry that I know of. Pretty sure that's right. And the types of results that you're getting for clients, it's a really good primer just for people to look through and see what types of results that they're getting. Yeah. Why do you think it's such an impactful, environment?
Well, maybe quickly, kind of the curricular process that we walk people through is what I find when we talk to new school owners coming in, they all say the same thing. If I just had more new students, I'd be fine. Yeah. And in every case, I've had one exception out of 1,000+ school owners that I've talked to. In every case, their dropout rate is horrible. Their value per student is horrible. Their profitability is tiny relative to what it should be. And there's so many other things that, and I think of it like you're turning dials, right? So if I can get a 50% bump on dropout rate or, improved dropout rate. So let's say I can go from 5% to 2.5% to 2% dropout rate. Well, at 300 students, that's the difference between needing 22 students a month to stay even or needing 6 students a month to stay even.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world. The example I used before, $100 average value per student, most of our clients are in the $350 to $450 range. So if they have 300 students, they're doing 90 to 110, 120 a month.
And how does that impact the net?
Oh, it's 50% more to the bottom line, right? And again, it's a completely different way of operating.
Yeah.
But the way we start is we start with fixing pricing, fixing conversion rate. So, making sure lead to appointment to enrollment to getting started is all tight. Then we open up the floodgates literally with intro traffic, getting that Parthenon going. Then once we've done that, the next thing is fixing the dropout rate. Most of the dropout rate is in the first 6 months, and most of that's in the first 2 months. So we fix that. The next thing that you need to do is start renewing people and have a significant bump and a significant program that you're going to renew them to. The next thing is you need staff and you need the ability to scale it. So, that's the process. And, when we're talking about getting more new students in the school, that's really the easiest thing to fix. And most people don't believe that. But the hard thing is, if I quadruple the number of intros I have, is keeping my ratios tight. And then doing it at a price point where I'm making a good revenue per student. And two things happen. Toby, you know this from many years working with me and working with your own schools and in your current position. The more a student pays, the less they complain, the less likely they are to drop out. The more tuition you do initially makes your marketing a lot easier. Because if I'm having somebody pay $79 up front for a 1 month trial, and then I start billing them in 6 weeks, EFT, and most of them drop out in 6 weeks. Well, my budget to market to get somebody like that is not very high.
Yeah.
But if they're paying, $597 or $797 up front, $397 a month, and then they renew, I can pay more than anybody else in my area to get a new student, and we don't have to, but we have that flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I describe it is it's sort of like the commoditized health club model versus the high level academic, I guess, school model, right? Is it a health club or is it Harvard? Which one is it? And the closer you get to Harvard, the better off you are with all the metrics, as far as I can tell, right?
Without a doubt. You have higher quality students, you have better retention, you have better revenue per student, you have the ability to be more selective. And, some of the instructors are suffering through people they don't like.
And they behave better. Yeah. Payasando, by the way. I'm sorry, Paseando, I'm sorry on the name, by the way. He mentioned something in the chat that is intrinsic in what you're saying, is that high quality teaching, high quality instruction is an intrinsic component of all this stuff. None of this stuff works if what you're trying to do is sell McDonald's hamburger at steakhouse prices, right?
No. Well, and I think the whole McDojo thing that has gone around our industry is a myth. When I was at the Junior Institute, they called us a black belt factory. That was the McDojo thing, or a belt factory. That was the McDojo thing before somebody invented the term McDojo. But the reality was, we had half of the world-ranked kickboxers in the world. We had 2 of the 3 world champions and forms at the time. The 3 were George Chung, now owner of Black Belt Magazine, Charlie Lee, who I was working with, and John Chung, who I was working with. And we had the highest quality black belts that I've seen in the country, if not the world. But they called us a belt factory. Why? Because we had, at the time, probably 5,000 students spread across multiple locations. Toby, the thing I was going to add before we run out of time on the coaching process is we run the program just like we run the martial arts schools. Our behind the scenes, conversation all the time is, well, that's what we did in the martial arts schools. Why don't we do it in the coaching program? Is a lot of these guys, you get started and you're handed off to a tech person in the Philippines who are placing your ads. They're working personally with me, with Jeff Smith, with Greg Moody. They're working with us every week, just like a martial arts school. We have a live small group interactive meeting with everybody once a week, small, manageable numbers, fully interactive. We work with people personally to implement, and then we have a huge amount of resources, but it's not about more stuff. People are overwhelmed with stuff and information. It's about implementation. And like you said, the social proof of seeing what other people are doing so that you see the proof you can do it yourself. And when somebody has done 116,000 this month, you can ask them to their face, well, what did you do? What's new? What's different? How did you get 50 enrollments this month? What was the process? So it's kind of no stone goes unturned, but they're developing with personal support with people who know how to do it. Some of these things I see, a high profile person pitching the thing, and then they get handed off to somebody who doesn't have any idea what they're doing.
Right.
Most of them, the high profile person doesn't know much about what they're doing other than just how to pitch their own program.
Yeah, they can sell that.
Is that a fair thing to say?
You're selling your thing is the problem. Yeah,
exactly.
They're 2 separate elements. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I so far it looks like, by the comments and everything, this looks like it's been pretty useful so far. Remember, everybody, the 6 simple steps to add 100 new students to your school is available at fillyourschool.com. You can get a free copy of it there. I imagine if they have questions about the coaching system, the coaching process, and stuff like that, they can find information there, or they can go to Martial Arts
phone number is there. Yeah, martialartswealth.com, or you probably know Bob's number better than I do. 720-256. The phone number is at Fill Your School or Martial Arts Wealth.
I can't remember.
Yeah, 720-256-0208.
I'll make sure I have links in the description for all of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very good. Hey, it's been great fun.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. Paseando. Who else was over here? Hold on a second. Nina. Let's see. Philip was here. Who else is here? Let's see. Vladimir Georgiev. That's funny. He's hysterical. John Garland, June Lee. Oh, June Lee. Oh, fantastic. Great to see you, sir. June Lee runs a fabulously successful school up in the Northeast.
Excellent.
A bunch of folks. So thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Whereabouts in the Northeast?
He's in North Carolina.
Okay.
He has six brothers, seven brothers in the family, and they all have really large Taekwondo schools in kind of
Excellent.
the suburban DC, kind of a little further away from DC, but in that whole
Yeah.
area over there. It's pretty phenomenal.
I love it.
Thanks everybody so much for joining. Really appreciate it. We'll speak again really soon.
Thank you.
This has been a Martial Arts Industry Innovations production, presented by Martial Arts World News Magazine.